Alrighty then, it's time for a Jungle Evelyn game. Let's get the show on the road. Which one? I want to preface this with the fact that I'm not really an Evelyn player or ever really was. Too. And thus, you can take some of my opinions a little bit flimsy or my gameplay a little bit more lackluster. Anyhow, I've played her for I think about 8 games at this point. After this one, I had I think 2 more. And, I do know about the leashing stuff or whatever, but I just don't do it as often or at all because in the beginning, at the very least, I rather rely on my teammates' leashes because I tend to kind of screw up some complicated crap. Anyways, New Evelynn versus Old Evelynn. Everyone's going to want that question answered. Who is better? And I'm going to just tell you right now, this is not an answer none of you really will want or comprehend. Well, not comprehend, it's just essentially, it doesn't matter because Old Evelynn is absolutely dead. And I mean dead as in there's very little in this New Evelynn that from the old one except one portion of her. Essentially, Old Evelynn suffered from old champion design syndrome. Essentially, she was a menagerie of things in which she had no focus and constantly faced one issue or another. I'll make more sense of it in a bit. The New Evelynn is just pretty much straight out an AP assassin, and that's kind of it. Like, there's no building her AD for anything. She doesn't have the abilities or steroids or any of that kind of stuff. There's possibly no chance of actually building her tank because her damage will never actually get there. She doesn't have that kind of thing. And she's just gonna be kind of an AP assassin. And there's not enough items to make that old burn sustain damage build. So, Evelynn is essentially now just one kind of thing. And that's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, and I'll explain that too. So, Old Evelynn had the thing in which she had a menagerie of stats. Essentially, some AD scalings, AP scalings, some attack speed steroid on her. Well, and, stealth, true stealth. And then she, her first, before her rework, she had a stun, and that was really annoying. But after her rework, we're going to be focusing on that one, because that was the one we had for the longest time. She also had a really, honestly, I would say one of the more powerful ultimates for any jungler to actually have, considering the rest of her kit. That ultimate allowed her to sort of be, in some patches and builds, kind of like a tanky initiator or a tanky bruiser. AoE nuke the enemy team, you get a lot harder to kill, you slow them, you bursted them down for quite a bit of damage, and it was pretty silly to give her that in the first place. It's one of those situations where Riot kind of forced the champion to be better than she should have been. So they gave it to her. And you already told you, she could be like an AD champion, a la some like Master Yi with titties because of the attack speed she had and some of the AD scalings. Scratch people to death at some point at least. They kept reworking her and changing her, and then some patches, certain builds were better than the others. And then you had the infamous Burn Evelynn, which was like a sustained damage kind of thing, high sustained damage. Then obviously AP Burst Evelynn, AP Bruiser Evelynn. Just all these different builds on her worked out because she had a lot of stuff in her kit, a lot of random stuff on her kit, and at some point or another, one of those things could be exploited and maximized and become really strong. So she was just really difficult to balance, and let alone stealth just being an absolute dread to even consider. So that was just a bad situation for Evelynn in the past. And it made her, in some instances, a potential. Well, she was a game-breaking champion, so Riot constantly had to break her little legs just to keep her down. And that's kind of one of the main things that made the rework try to focus. Whether she is good or not right now in her current state, numbers-wise or whatever, that wasn't their main focus. Their main focus was just kind of giving themselves a way to work with her in the future. Because again, the old Evelynn was just an impossible mess to deal with. So at least New Evelynn right now, we have a chance to making her balanced. But then in comes another issue, like I was talking about. She's got one kind of build only. Maybe they'll find some like AP Bruiser build later, I don't know. Or maybe some new items or the new runes or masteries are going to cause something to happen. But I don't see that. So the New Evelynn right now is just kind of one thing, and it's just kill people. And does she do that well? Well, here's where the other big deal comes in. Old Evelynn had a really bad time in the early game. Her ganks were arguably better because she had the stealth, even though she didn't really have any crowd control or anything. Also, that was some bad camera work, I know. She didn't really have the, crowd control to make things happen, but the whole stealth thing, if you're good enough, you can make interesting approaches for kills. Now the new one has the charm, which is interesting to use and does a lot of damage when you trigger it, plus charms them to you, but it's exceedingly hard to use. And at the same time, I'm kind of mostly finding myself being able to pull it off successfully if the opponent was already in a really awful spot, or when I have my, level 6 stealth going on, or if they engage on my teammates and just kind of, they blunder into it. So, I'm not really sure about that one. So, early ganking, I kind of still have to give it to the old Evelynn, because this new charm, again, while potent and while technically a hard CC, you kind of only really get it when your opponents are already in mid-fight or not paying attention, or you're like already stealth on top of them. So in that case, you could have just, used your ultimate at that point, because you're only ever going to be able to approach them with your, you're only going to be able to approach them when you have your camouflage on. The argument could be made that instead of, relying on your ultimate like old Evelynn to use some CC and close the gap, you can constantly do this once you have level 6, but if your opponents are, dying repeatedly to that, they got their own problems, right? As far as damage goes, old Evelynn, well, new Evelynn and old Evelynn are quite interesting. I think the new Evelynn does more damage in the long run, but the old Evelynn, I guess I missed her old E because I could actually scratch people and auto attacks. I just feel new Evelynn relies way too much on her abilities to do very much before she just kind of gets destroyed. A little bit more bursty, less sustaining damage than the old one. That one's a toss-up, right? We'll see what ends up happening with that. Ultimates already kind of the new ultimate of Evelynn, I really hate it. Like, to use it, it's like if you don't count it correctly, like if you don't count the damage correctly, you end up just letting them sort of live most of the time, right? Like, it does a lot of damage in a team fight, but it's essentially like you have to run in there, hurt somebody, and hopefully kill them. Otherwise, I'm not really liking the new ultimate. I mean, it's good that you can escape, but it's sort of like using your Malphite ultimate to escape. Old Evelynn, this is where the biggest point comes in. The new Evelynn feels really bad in team fights. Like, if you're even just slightly ahead in your opponents, you probably are just going to, just not do much. I mean, you'll run in there and hopefully maul somebody, but usually, if you're not stupid, they're gonna crowd control you, or they're gonna take you in consideration, and you won't be able to do as much damage as you want. I just kind of feel like I don't get to do very much on the new one. I mean, the charm essentially means that you have to use it as an opener, and then in a team fight, it's gonna be really difficult to pop it. So it's not really a non-factor once a fight actually happens. And I said, I guess you can still use it if they blunder into it, like they engage on your team, and then you force them to sort of scatter. It does have that effect where, once someone is charmed, they get pretty scared. But eventually I think people will catch on that it's not the biggest deal as long as you're paying attention. I can, destroy people if I catch them off guard, but that's kind of most any assassin, so I'm not going to give her credit on that. Old Evelynn had one thing that, even though I didn't play her, if I saw an Evelynn on the enemy team and she was doing, well enough to farm or better than average, her ultimate was just really strong in team fights. If you burst the enemy team down, you became harder to kill, and then you ran in there like Master Yi and just started scratching somebody with some builds, right? I guess, like I said earlier, the new Evelynn is just sort of a stepping stone for the balance team to start working on her to make her less, silly to balance. Just giving themselves a foundation. So right now she's a little bit, sketchy in terms of viability. But the old Evelynn, like despite all her problems, she could be a competent champion. I mean, if they kept her the same and they really bothered to just sort of focus on a couple things they wanted to do, they could have made it work, I think. I just think they didn't want to, keep her the same and then take away some of her types of builds or aspects and risk pissing off everyone, or pissing off everyone that liked that. They might as well just redo the entire champion and have the excuse of we reworked her completely in order to protect themselves. Or something. That's a little bit too harsh. Not really protect themselves, just sort of tell people, this is the direction we feel is best for Evelynn or healthy or whatever. Rather than sort of, go a little bit into it and then sort of not appease the people. I don't know. I guess, like I said earlier, the new Evelynn, like the old Evelynn, has one thing that, even though I didn't play her, if I saw an Evelynn on the enemy team and she was doing, well enough to farm or better than average, Nonetheless, have I been enjoying her? No, not really. Like, you know, she can carry games. She's still a solo queue. It's a death machine, and maybe the new Evelynn is, you know, a bit better for that because your early game clearing and early game shenanigans is a bit better at least. You know, jungle wise, she clears a lot better, and her mana isn't as chaotically bad. So she's got that going. You know, you're a little bit more independent in the beginning than the old Evelynn. So that might be enough to make her, you know, usable or workable in a solo queue. I mean, she already was, but you get what I mean, right? Less of a danger to yourself. So, yeah, you know, I'm a bit busting her out because she can win games. You know, if she's an assassin, and assassins in the jungle are pretty good. So, play her, try her, maybe you'll do better. I mean, I'm definitely not an Evelynn master, so you give it a try. And remember, if you enjoyed the video, make a comment below in the comment section and also give the video a like. That helps the channel a lot more than you think.